We're hopefully going to be that, one-stop podcast where they know they're going to come on and hear real information, not just the fluffy surface chit-chat. It's actual real life scenarios and real life feelings and stories and experiences and solutions as well. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Lessons Podcast. How are you going today, babe?
I'm great. It's been we've had some awesome conversations, and it's been a really busy week. But I'm loving hearing and seeing all the feedback that everyone's been giving us. We really appreciate everyone's support, and we're loving doing these podcasts.
It is Friday here on the Gold Coast. It is 10 a.m. So we have already recorded 2 podcasts this morning, and we're moving on to our third. I was just saying on my social media how much I'm loving having these real conversations and actually sitting down, connecting with you, connecting with our guests, and I hope that everyone listening can really feel and take so much away from them, these conversations. But our next one is a little deeper.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one.
It's very close to our heart because this next guest is Bryan Reeves, and he has been a close person in our life, our relationship coach, your personal coach.
Yep.
And we have really gone through a lot of ups and downs with Bryan, and have a lot to thank him for.
Yeah, and I just want to honor you, Bryan.
Thank you.
Your support, your work, your the way you handle the situations and so on, and I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me and Ashy, and also me personally as well. So. Yeah, love you, mate. And we're
honoured to have you on here today. I think everyone's going to get a lot out of it. We can't wait for everyone to get to know you more. So, Bryan
I'm just
Reeves.
dying to say thank you. and I think, what has it been? I think almost 2 years now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think a little over 2 years now, or about 2 years now that we've been working together and interacting.
Nearly our anniversary.
It's incredible. And I want to just say, I just have so much love for the two of you. It's been such an honor and a privilege to serve you both on your journey. The ripple effect of working with you and what you two transmit into the world through your work and to your child, and your family, and just it's a privilege to serve you both.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. Let's move on to the actual podcast. Bryan Reeves. Who is Bryan Reeves? Tell us about yourself. What do you do?
Well, I'm Bryan Reeves, and I like to clarify that I'm Bryan with a Y, Reeves.
Okay, very important.
Because my own sister, years ago, still sometimes spells my name with an I, which is so painful for me. Come on, Casey. Come on. So Bryan with a Y, Reeves. And what do I do? Well, right now, for the last, 8 or 9 years, I've been a life coach and a relationship coach, working with couples, working with men, working with women. But I have my background is in the military. I was in the Air Force. I have a master's in human relations, although I came from a technical background, and I really experienced the dichotomy of being a successful man, totally checked out of my body. And trying to do intimate relationship from that place, and it never, ever, ever going well, which I'm sure is not a surprise to many of our listeners. And so, the work that I've been doing in my own life, and this is what I'm going to want to talk about too in the lessons, but I'll let you guys kind of hold that and lead that. But today I work with men, I work with women and couples in a coaching practice to help them really create the lives and relationships they're aching for.
Yeah.
So how did you get into the relationship coaching? Like there would have been a process of, you said you're in the military, and to go from that to relationship coaching is a huge transition. Tell us about that.
And it definitely wasn't from one to the other. It's been a very long and circuitous route. And, I like to say that my best credential, although I have a master's degree in human psychology, but my best credential is that I sucked at relationships for 20 years.
Yeah.
And, I made all of the mistakes except for I didn't really cheat on a partner. Although there was some confusion that I sowed but I never outright. Well, no, my partners would say I cheated. So there you go. Yeah. I've made all the mistakes and from always with the best of intentions. And I started writing about that. I was actually managing spiritual music bands on one of my many iterations of career and passionate pursuit. And I was blogging about that. And then when the bands broke up and I no longer had that, I wanted to keep writing. And I started writing at 36 years old, what I was waking up to about intimacy and relationships and what I had been missing all these years, what no one taught me that someone should have fucking taught me so many years ago. And that hit a chord. And I had a lot of, some of my blogs went viral. I have a blog out there called Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her.
I want to say that is an amazing writing what you do too. If anyone has a chance to go in and
I'm not surprised it's gone viral, because every person that reads that is just like, holy moly, that hits.
You should do a lot more of that, mate, for sure.
Yeah, that one, that really touched the nerve. And at the time I was transitioning, managing bands and helping people, kind of consulting in their businesses. And I just transitioned that into coaching. And as I wrote more and more about relationships, people just reached out and said, hey man, please help me. You seem to be too clued into something that I'm missing. So help me. And it just, took on a life of its own. I would have never chosen this for myself. It's one of those, it just kind of chose me.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So the big question that we ask all of our guests that come onto the podcast is, what is your biggest life lesson? And I know it's really hard to pick one. And we hope to have you on the podcast a lot, because I feel, and I know you have a lot of amazing lessons to teach the world. But today, if you can pick just one lesson, what would that be?
So the lesson, as I was inventorying all of my life journey and all of the nuggets of wisdom and the life-changing moments, and they are numerous. But the one that I wanted to talk about today, because it's the one that I think is most core to my work in the world. And when I say my work in the world, I don't just mean my professional work in the world. I mean my personal work in the world.
Yep.
It's about connection. That when we can learn how to create connection first, we can get through anything. And I mean connection, yes, to other people, to whether it's our intimate partner. I mean, I just look at the state of the world today. Even the couples that I work with, even in my own life, it's like, it's never about, all the things that we fight about, whether in intimacy, whether in politics, whether in any domain. It's never about the details. It's about our inability to connect first and move forward in partnership.
Yes.
And I think, the reason that's been a huge, and I really only put this together in the last few years, why even I've been doing all the work I've been doing all these years, is when I was 4, my parents divorced. And it was very hostile. And essentially my parents for the rest of my life never got along. And just, there was even, I would say, what felt like a hatred there. And so as a 4-year-old child, who even before that happened, there was discord in my home. And then for the rest of my life, my family would never again be together. Never. Mm-hmm. And not just would they not be together physically, but they wouldn't even be together kind of emotionally or energetically, like sort of, okay, yeah, they live apart, but they're good with each other. That's a form of connection. And that would never, ever, ever, I've never experienced that again in my life. And the pain, the sadness, the hurt that I've only, again, as I said, in the last few years, really come to understand how much that affected me. Well, it makes sense that in a sense, my life's work is dedicated to help people connect.
Yeah, because of the pain that caused. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you think the connection with yourself is the most important?
Yeah, well, I think, and and the irony of it is that's actually all there really is.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's connection with other begins with, I mean, there's a whole spiritual dimension to this, if you will. There's I believe, in kind of the ultimate scheme of things is one of my favorite quotes says it best by Rumi. He says, we are all so connected that the word connected doesn't even make sense. So, but I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole and just kind of keep it in the realm of the practical and the everyday. But yeah, connection to myself. I cannot connect to my partner, not from a place of authenticity, if I'm not connecting to myself first. If I'm not feeling what's happening in my body, if I'm not connected to what's going on with me emotionally, if nobody's home over here, then I'm over there kind of trying to manage her business or figure out what's going on with her or tell whatever stories I'm telling about her. Well, I mean, how can I connect when one of us is missing and that one's me?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Totally.
How do you connect with yourself? Over the years, obviously, it takes a lot of practice, and it's easy to disconnect with our partners, but it's also easy to disconnect with ourselves. So how do you connect with yourself and get back to that grounding place?
Yeah, and I think, and we live in a world that's constantly telling us we are disconnected from ourselves, and constantly promising, just do that and you'll connect with yourself. Just do that and you'll finally feel you'll be able to relax. Just buy this, just consume that, just eat this, just smoke that, and then you'll be able to feel relaxed. And which is, again, and it never works. So, how do you connect with yourself? One of the big distinctions that for me, connecting with myself, and again, all the work that I do with couples, with individuals, it's always begun with me in my own journey, in my own life. If I read something in a book, but it didn't work in my life, then it doesn't enter into anything that I do or write or teach or practice. And so, but boundaries, having boundaries, really discovering, okay, well, where am I anyway? Who am I? What do I care about? What's important to me? Because especially in all the work that I do, that you guys do, that people listening, all the work that we're doing in the world, it's such an outpouring of our energy. It's such a giving, creating, producing, that I believe we're so empty. We don't have a sense of our own boundaries. So we don't know how to fill up our own cups. I think you were mentioning that, Preston, in the other podcast episode, Preston Smiles, whether that's coming up or it's behind us, wherever it is in the order, right? You filling up your own cup, and the overflow is what's for everybody else.
Yep.
But I think if you don't know where your boundaries are, you don't even know where your cup is. You don't know what to fill up. Connecting with myself means spending time in nature. It means eating food that actually feels good in my body. It means, like I said earlier, not getting into my partner's business and trying to figure out what she should or shouldn't do, and just staying in my own and getting clear about what's true for me to do or not do.
Yes, I love that. And I feel like maybe we should even answer that. I mean, for me, connecting to myself, it is getting away from the people pleasing and really asking myself, what do I need in this moment? How can I fill my cup up to be the best version of myself? And like I say all the time on my social media, if I'm filling up my own cup, I give everyone the best of me, not the rest of me. So every day it's, how can I get back to that grounding place of feeling connected to myself and feeling grateful, and not getting caught up in trying to please everyone else or fix everything around me.
Yeah, and there's also there's a big distinction between us two. Like, I fill my cup up alone. Like, I need to go off into my own space, my man cave, so to speak, or I fill up by being by myself, where Ashy would need to go to her friends and fill up by being around.
I like being around different energies for sure. Yeah.
I'm more similar to you, Steve, in that same sense. I really thrive on my time in it, but I need more I need to really be in a natural setting, where I think, because I can just kind of sit in a room and watch, binge on Vikings on Hulu, and I feel great. But that isolation can be also very depleting for me.
Yes.
And that's when you can go to your friends for that playfulness, that connection.
Yeah, and I think but what we're all three pointing out here is that it is a subjective experience. Which also can cause, in other words, what's connecting for me is different than what's going to be connecting for Steven, what's going to be connecting for Ashy. And what I often see, and this is, I think, what's sort of the state of the world and the state of intimate relationship. People are even if 50%, and that's not exactly an accurate statistic, but even if 50%, let's just say 50% of marriages and relationships are staying together, they're not divorcing. How much of that 50% are actually happy and satisfied?
So for our listeners, if they are listening and saying and thinking, oh, okay, yeah, I feel disconnected from myself. I don't know how to connect. Like, what does that even mean for me? What's something you could tell our listeners that could help them get to that place of connection? Because it is really important. It does lead our day every day.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I want to acknowledge, I know, and you guys, your parents, you have a child, you have there's an obligation that you have to feed a child, to take care of a child, right? Even during this podcast, we would just take a pause so that you could go and tend to the noises in the background to make sure everything's okay back there.
I love you, little man.
So, I think in the social media sphere and in the memosphere, there's this idea that just take care of yourself and let everything figure itself out. And I think that can be a little dismissive. I think the really important distinction here is, though, and you guys certainly know this and have experienced this, that if you're empty and giving from your emptiness, you don't serve your child.
No.
You don't serve your child. I mean, you can make sure he's fed. You can make sure he doesn't hurt himself. You can make sure that he has clothes on his back and make sure he gets to where he needs to be on time and this and that. But in terms of the emotional nurturing and the comfort and the emotional presence that really serves him,
the energy, yeah,
you won't have it to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the great challenge of our age is, and this is why that connection, the lesson around connection is so invaluable and important to me personally, is because I think this is the great challenge of our age is, okay, look, we've got the iPhone 10 now, or whatever the hell it is. We've got, we've got all the technology. We can kill ourselves 100 times over. We can communicate. I mean, and that's fine. I'm glad that's all going to continue improving. But the state of our connection with ourselves and with each other, we're bankrupt in a sense in terms of our capacity to connect. And look at what's happening in the world as a result of it. Look at what's happening in our intimate relationships, because it's like I like to use the metaphor. We've built the castle. The castle walls are built. What we don't have is fire in the hearth. That's the connection piece. It's like, where's the life inside of the castle? It's like where the war is happening in the castle because we don't know how to connect and really nurture life and love each other. Really, in the end, it's a loving act to connect with someone even when you don't understand them.
100%. Yep. And you said that talking about, the iPhone 10, and let's talk about social media and how that is affecting our intimate relationships. I mean, these days we're spending so much more time, and we're all guilty of it, scrolling left, right. Even if you're single, you're, trying to find someone just with a swipe of a finger in your intimate relationship. We're so consumed by other people's lives and what they're eating, what they're doing, how they're parenting, you're comparing, and it can cause that disconnection. Like even, if you're laying in bed at night 10 years ago, you'd be laying in bed having a conversation. Now it's checking your emails, it's checking your social media, it's posting a photo. How are you finding that's quite a common disconnection in most couples that you work with?
Absolutely. In fact, statistics in the UK and the United States, I remember reading this a few years back, that something like 1 out of 5 divorces cite social media as a contributing factor.
Wow.
That's so disturbing, isn't it?
And what I see is that we use social media for a like pseudo connection.
Yeah.
It's like junk food connection. It's not real connection. It's not deep connection, but it is connection. It is a form of connection.
Yeah. We're all going to get that need one way or the other. I mean, if you're craving connection, there's whether it's positively or negatively,
it fills a void.
Fills a void. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, in these days, even in the video game sphere, which I love video games, but even in video games, we can connect with people who aren't even in the room, who we'll never see, we'll never meet, but we can kind of get lost in this virtual world and connect. It is a form of connection.
Yep.
But yet then the woman or the man in the next room who we've chosen to build a life with gets, is just lost in that pseudo connection that we're getting in our smartphone when we're in the bathroom and I think that's, and we don't know how to talk about it though. That's the rub is these things aren't bad, is we don't know how to talk about it in a way that preserves partnership in the home, let's say, in the same way that in politics, we don't know how to disagree in a way that still preserves partnership.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic is, when we can be deeply who we want to be and who we are and still stay connected to the people who are different from us. Whether it's, my woman in the bed next to me or the politician that I who I completely disagree with their ideas.
When on your bio and website and so on, one of your key phrases is crisis. You help people from crisis to connection.
Yeah.
Is that the main thing that you find when a couple comes to you or a person comes to you, that is the main contributing? That's like almost like step one. You look
Absolutely.
at, yep.
I actually don't think couples are fighting about money. I don't think they're fighting about sex. I don't think they're fighting about social media. I think couples are fighting because they don't feel connected.
Yeah.
They have what I call a crisis of connection.
So how do you get two couples? What's your usual go-to thing that you, how do you get them to connect with themselves first?
Well, the evolution of that journey is a model that I use in my coaching, which we've talked extensively about in our work, is moving from stage 1 to stage 3. Sort of an evolution of 3 stages that relationships can go through. Many relationships will remain in stage 1 for their duration, which is that codependent stage, which is just all about me, my concern, my needs, and that's all the childhood wounding stuff.
Yes.
and the unmet needs that all humans experience.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is navigating the mind through beyond that, those childhood wounds and traumas and insecurities and fears, the fear that we're going to be abandoned or controlled, and moving that through to recognizing that, hey, you're not the only one that has that fear. The person in front of you also shares that fear.
Yes.
And once we can now recognize, oh shit, okay, wow, my partner also has got a lot of stuff going on over there. I'm not the only one who's crazy and going on or upset or this or that. There's 2 of us in the room. That's kind of the second stage. Is we're both going through something. Okay, that's a huge first step, just to acknowledge the other person in the room.
Both having an experience, different, but both having an experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because in that first stage, we can't even acknowledge the other person's experience.
So in our
it's
own
not
head.
valid. We're in our own stuff. And so until we can acknowledge that there's someone else in the room who's having an experience and it's valid, even if it's different, like that's the next step. And then from there, the third stage, and this is where everyone wants to live, but so few people do the work and do because it can be confrontational to your own stuff. That your own unmet needs again. But the third stage,
can I acknowledge that
what's
too?
that?
Doing the work. That's so important to highlight that, because like you said, you're going to explain stage 3 in a second, but it does take so much work consistently, consciously to get to that stage 3. And you always have to be working on it, right?
Yeah. On yourself.
But continue on. Sorry, stage 3.
And stage 3 is where finally now we embrace that there's a me and there's a you. We're both in the room. We both have right to exist here. And now the stage 3 kind of psychology or mindset is, okay, now we are functioning as a we. So I'm no longer making decisions or choices just from my self-concern. And I'm also no longer making decisions or sort of living with decisions just from your self-concern. Now there's a bigger conversation. It's like, okay, and this is the question that I will often give couples when they're kind of in this journey is to live inside of the question of what would serve we, not just me and not just you, but what would serve we.
Yep.
And the magic in that is now, and you have to be connected to yourself and to your partner in order to really be inside of that question and let it do its magic, because I'm connected to me. So it's like, I know what my needs are. I know what I feel. I know where my heart is and what my yearning is. And I'm attuned to you. So I'm connected. I'm tuned into what your needs are, what you're wanting. And now it's like there's a magic in that question. What would serve we? And, and whether it's 2 people or even 2 political parties or 2 nations, whatever it is. But now there's this question that's sort of just, it's really magic. What can happen is solutions can arise that we couldn't get to by ourselves.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, like in our own relationship, like we're so aware of, because we've been working with you
the
for
three stages, yeah.
But we have been in stage 3 for periods of time, and it's amazing. I look at those periods and then you slip back to 2, sometimes even to 1 if there's a crisis, and then it's a matter of building back through the cycles. It's very hard to go from stage 1 to 3 straight away. There's a building process, and I think it's accepting that it's okay to, it's not always going to be in stage 3.
It's not easy.
But it takes so much work and understanding and self-awareness, awareness of yourself, and also awareness of your partner.
Yeah.
It's something that we are really, really, really trying to be focused on all the time. But man, it's
like you said, being connected with yourself to know what you need, and not just pleasing them and not being in your own head either, but also, being really connected to your partner to understand what they need as well. It's a juggle.
It is. And you're right. Look, me and my fiance, we've been together for 4 years, and she's a marriage and family therapist, by the way. So here you have relationship coach, marriage and family therapist. Believe me, we regularly have our stage 1 kind of fuck you moments. You're not doing what I want.
Yeah.
You're not meeting my need. But the thing is you're right. It's not about, I've never met a couple who lives in stage 3 all the time. It's really about learning to recognize when we're having a stage 1 moment, and gaining the tools to connect again to self, then to other, so that we can navigate through that 3-stage map.
Yeah.
Within, literally, it can take seconds. It can 60 seconds. You can move from that stance where both of you have your daggers out and you're ready to, do
your
war.
Weapons,
to okay, and to the nervous system is now kind of coming down, settled. You're breathing deeper, and you're really now in. Okay, I realize we're both caught right now. We're in the soup, and breathing, connecting to self. That's the important part of the process. Okay, wow, I'm going through something right now. Something's happening. I'm in a story, or I'm having an emotion.
Triggered.
And I can see that you are too. Now, again, we create space for that 3rd stage magic to come through, where we don't really know what's going to necessarily happen in the next moment, but we're in partnership now.
Yeah.
We're in partnership now, and there's solutions. This is what I'm always impressing upon in my couples work, especially, and it applies for everything, I believe. No good solutions come from a state of disconnection.
Yeah. For sure. I'd like to add, whenever we've come to you for coaching, it's been a few times in crisis, and it's when we've broken down totally that whatever we say is just not getting through. We feel
like we're on different teams, and when we come to you, it's like you remind us that you guys are on the same team. You actually love each other. You're just in your stage 1 wounded child victim, mentality.
And sometimes it just takes that third person. That's why we really value so much. It saves a lot of back and forth arguments. It saves a lot of, because
I suppose we're still practicing catching it and going, okay, we're back in that stage 1. Let's take a breath, and let's find this dance together, where obviously the more you practice it, the easier it's going to get, but it's really hard to catch it quickly. And I know I'll put my hand up straight away to say that I struggle with that. I tend to carry an argument on and sulk and dwell, and it takes me a little bit longer. I want to get better at catching it and going, okay, breathe, Ash.
And I feel like you're almost, you're our savior a lot of times, because we just know if we're in that stage 1 part, like we've had a crisis of some sort, that we can go to you, and you're going to, look at it from that third eye and put us back onto that connection phase. And it can happen so quickly. Like once we, it's crazy how stuck you get in your head when you're in a fight or when you're in a...
For sure. You're thinking about your own needs. And we see it with our friends now. Obviously, we've done a lot of coaching with you, so we're very quick to see in our relationship. It's like you become, you observe, and it helps us learn. But I can see my friends go through arguments with their partners, and I never jump in and say, oh, that's stage 1, unless they were to come to me and ask for advice. But you can really see how it breaks down. And a lot of the time, some people will just stay in that stage 1 and fight and fight and fight. And then other people will just shove it under the rug and pretend nothing's happened. And the same problems will come up later on. Everyone deals with it so differently. But when you have an understanding of the 3 stages, it can help you move through those crisis moments with your partner
Do you feel most people sort of just stick in stage 2? Like that's kind of where most relationships
I think our cultural ideal is stage 2, because stage 2 is the independence mind. It's everyone for himself or herself.
Yeah.
And that's what stage 2 is really about, developing your independent self. It's a beautiful and important part of our evolution as humans through a lifetime, differentiating from our parents, discovering our own boundaries. The work of stage 2 is all about boundaries, healthy boundaries. And but our cultural ideal kind of stops there. And in fact, often stage 3 will look like stage 1 to people that haven't really experienced it. Because, for example, as an example, I opening the door for my partner when we go driving or go anywhere, I always open the door for her. And it's interesting, I come from the East Coast of the United States, which I would not describe as a very chivalrous place. In the East Coast of the United States, it's, I love being from the East Coast, and we're very sort of just grounded people. We do our work. And it's a very independent minded culture on the East Coast of the US. I opened the door for my sister. I remember this maybe last time I visited, and she looked at me like I was nuts. Like, what are you doing? Because that's kind of stage 1, where let's say a man will do something for a woman, but then expect something for it.
Yeah.
Or likewise, it's like we do something out of expectation that we're going to get something in return. That's what stage 1 is all about. In stage 3, I'll still open the door for my partner. The only difference is I don't expect anything in return for it, not even a smile. Yeah. And so our cultural ideal, we don't know the difference largely between stage 1 and stage 3, because we're so practiced at stage 1, and we're so, and correctly so, averse to stage 1, because that's where all the power struggles, the oppressive dynamics are. You only exist insofar as whether or not you make me feel good is really what stage 1 is all about. And that doesn't feel good. That's not enjoyable. That sucks. Kind of survival mentality, and it's painful. And yes, people can stay there for years, but in the West, we have cultivated the stage 2 independent mindset, and it's an important evolution, but it is not the end of the story.
Have you found we've experienced I've experienced breakup before. We've got friends and family have been through breakups. What do you typically find? How long does it take until usually a breakup occurs? I know a woman usually is checked out a lot longer,
emotionally checked out a long time before.
Yeah, where it obviously staying in stage 1 for so long, that's when things break down. And have you found any patterns from working with so many couples?
Yeah.
I mean,
here's what I would say about that. Again, there's no one size fits all. So, take what leaves take what resonates and leaves the rest. But what I've found is that generally women will grieve a relationship even before it's over.
Yeah.
They'll stay and grieve even before their partner, and we're talking heterosexually speaking, obviously. I mean, there's all kinds of different scenarios, but generally the more feminine partner, let's say, which even in a same-sex relationship could be a woman or a man, but whoever's kind of holding that more feminine essence in the relationship, if they're not feeling connected in the partnership, they'll grieve before they actually pull the plug. And which means when they pull the plug, they're done.
There's no going back.
Whereas, so they do it once, they leave once. And it could take years though. I mean, I've worked with couples that have been, I just did what I call a weekend intensive, or a private intensive with one couple just maybe 2 months ago. They come and work with me, flew across the country to spend a weekend with me. And they were 65 years old. They'd been together for 46 years.
Wow.
And for 45 years, they lived in painful disconnect. And it's only in the last year that they've finally figured out something's off. And they figured it out because she left. The woman, she was like, I can't do this anymore. And that was like her husband finally got a damn clue. That's how it often happens.
Yeah.
And see, that's the thing is, men, or at least the more masculine partner in a relationship, they'll leave and come back, leave and come back, leave and come back, whether that means actually leave the relationship and then want to come back, or it just might mean they'll check out into work or into sports or into their hobby, and they'll come back for sex or for affection or for something when they'll do that endlessly.
Yeah.
So they'll leave and come back, endlessly. But a woman, or the more feminine, she'll leave once. And when she leaves and she's done, when all hope for the connection she yearns for is over, she will generally never go back to that relationship.
I definitely agree with that. I've experienced that with my first partner. I felt like I emotionally grieved for about a year before I actually left. And by that time, it was just too late. And I'm watching a few friends go through it now as well. And I feel like I've been watching them for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I've always thought in my head, if she leaves, she's gone forever and it's too little too late. And I have heard you say before, actually, I would like to bring up that it normally takes a crisis for a masculine to say, oh shit, now I get it. Now I'm going to change. But a lot of the time, they've lost their woman in the process, and now they have to do the work by themselves instead of having the support of their partner.
My partner, she actually broke up with me 6 months into our relationship, and I didn't see it coming for a second. We were hitting a wall. Most relationships do. Within 6 months, you're running into something.
Yeah.
Because you're starting to get real with each other.
The honeymoon stage is over.
And what was really interesting to experience too is even when you feel really safe with someone, like this is the person, like this is the one I want to build a life with, and you start to really feel, because you feel safe, that's when the really deep shit comes out, because it feels safe, because it's like, it's safe. So all of those demons that you've been hiding in your closet all these years, they're like, oh, we're safe to come out and party.
Yeah.
And at that time, we had already started working with somebody to support us, and she was not the right person for us, and she didn't serve us at all. In fact, she had an agenda for us, and we didn't see that till later. It was coaching malpractice. Your therapist or coach should never have an agenda for you.
Yeah.
They should never know what you should do, or whether you're, I believe, as much as I want to serve you in our work together, I'm committed to serving you, but that doesn't mean I'm committed to keeping you together.
Yeah.
That's not my role to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good distinction, really.
Yeah, 100%.
And so anyway, my partner, she broke up with me 6 months in, and it fucking rocked my world. This is the woman that I'd waited a lifetime for, and she just ended the relationship. I couldn't wrap my head around it. But what had happened is in the first 6 months that we were together, she would say this thing. She kept saying, Bryan, you're like a single man who's in a relationship with me. And I didn't know what the hell she was talking about, because I changed my Facebook status. I made all the announcements to the world. I didn't have any other relationships going on. I wasn't flirting with anybody. I wasn't violating those boundaries. I was in. And she kept saying, you're like a single guy who's in relationship with me. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. And then she broke up with me. And those 3 weeks that we were apart, what happened is, and I'll use the language of the 3 stages, was I was really functioning in that second stage mindset. I'd been single for 6 years, so I had a lot of momentum of being a single guy. And now, I'm in relationship, but I'm still my own man. I'm writing whatever the hell I want to write without considering her feelings. I'm making decisions. At the time I was moving, I was transitioning and traveling a lot. I actually came to Australia during that time, and when we met. So I didn't have a home. I was doing a lot of travel. But then when I decided where I was going to live, I gave her no consideration for my choice. And just something that I made in that choice was hurtful to her. And I was dismissive of that. Like, well, this is my choice. Why should this matter to you at all? I should get to choose where I live. And I was just so rooted in my stage 2 independent sort of way of showing up in the world. And she didn't want that kind of a relationship. This is a woman who is a strong stand for interdependence, for boundaries, and and I find this too, often women or the more feminine partner are the catalyst for stage 3 relationship.
Oh, really?
Because it's like, yes, I find that very often, because she's kind of making the stand of, okay, look, yes, we're independent and whole and complete, and you fucker, I want love more. I want more, connect, open up, let's risk something. That's to love is to risk. And in stage 2, there's no risk. We're not risking anything.
Yeah.
We're in our independence. We're separate still.
You almost got a wall up so you can't get hurt.
That's right. And what happened for me in those 3 weeks we were apart, I was just shattered. And all the success that I had, again, my blogs were being read by millions of people. My coaching practice was off the hook. I mean, everything, I was getting admiration from people all over the world, and none of it mattered.
Yeah.
It was completely and utterly meaningless without love in my, not without her, without her, but she was sort of symbolic. Again, disconnection from myself. Like my heart is like, and yet that opened me up in a way that I had never felt more connected to myself. So that after 3 weeks, when life gave us this really weird moment to interact, but she felt me so much in my body, so connected to my heart, she got dizzy. It was surreal for her. I mean, she literally like didn't know what to do with what she felt in me, and that changed everything for us.
That she hadn't felt before.
That she hadn't felt before. That's right. And that was sort of, I was in my stage 3. I was so connected to me. I was willing to not be with her, and I was communicating to her how much I was committed to loving her, even if she chose to never see me again. It's like, that's the magic of stage 3. It's, I know what I want and I'm willing to not have it.
Yeah.
That's the magic of stage 3.
And I also find with that too, it's the best way to get out of stage 1 to stage 2 as well as being vulnerable, which is what you talk. Like I know whenever we've had issues and there's a massive wall up, or there's a crisis of what sort. When one of us just opens up, and it only takes one person, you don't need two. It really is the key to sort of.
Yes, vulnerability is beautiful.
That's right. You're right. It really only takes one person to break the pattern.
Yeah.
And that I've started calling it kind of owning and honoring. Owning my experience. This is what's happening for me. I'm scared. I'm hurt. And again, that's an act of self-connection.
Yep.
This is what I'm feeling. This is what's happening for me.
And sharing.
And it's not, I feel that you're an asshole, or I feel that you don't care about me. That's one of the worst things that you could ever say to somebody, I think.
Yeah.
I feel that you don't care. Yeah. Rather, I feel scared, or I feel unseen. I feel unappreciated. I feel unloved. This is my feeling.
Yeah.
That is an act of radical ownership of my experience, and honoring, that is definitely a step out of stage 1.
And that can only come from being connected with yourself, which is your lesson. You can only get to that point of, I feel this, is by really checking in with yourself and yeah.
And that difference, I think, is really important. Something we've learned as well. Instead of saying, you're an asshole, you're making me feel like this, you did this, it's your fault. It's like swapping that to going into being vulnerable, how it makes me feel. I feel scared right now. When you do that, that makes me feel unsafe. When you do that, I feel disconnected.
That's right.
Going back into those feelings instead of pointing the finger and blaming that you've done this.
Or just, I feel so angry right now. There's that side of things too,
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'll tell you, an anger practice, really embracing anger, is so powerful. I mean, we've never seen anger expressed in safe ways. And what I would love everyone to know is that actually anger, it's part of the human experience, and it has its place. And we can be angry in ways that are still honoring of the person or people we're angry at. Yeah. And that's, again, where magic happens. And that's what the 3rd stage is really about. It's about offering the truth of my experience without needing you to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I love the word experience too. And it's something we've learned in the last 2 years of working with you. It's, even if you don't understand why your significant other is feeling like that, and in your head, it's not the truth and it's not what's happened. It's their truth and it's their experience, and they are okay and valid to have that own experience. And sometimes, if we have conflict, it's like, I don't understand why you're upset about that. It's like, okay, well, I don't have to understand it, but I do have to understand that he's having an experience. And as a loving partner and being on the same team, I want to support you through that experience.
But also the other side to that is, it's not up to you to hold that for them. Then that's the thing, like, as a loving partner, you think you need to take that on and support, like you did use the word, support them through that. But really it's my own personal work, or your personal work to get through that. So you're not projecting your own stuff onto the relationship.
Yeah, I think that'll move on to the next question that I just wanted to quickly touch. I'm not sure how long we've been going for, but I would like to quickly touch on something that I think is really important is, you're right, carrying each other's shit.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time it's our triggers. And something you've really taught us is that everyone has triggers from our past experience, from our childhood, from different things that have happened. And it's learning how to manage, lean in and feel our triggers and not expect the other person to carry that and fix that. We're always going to be triggered. But when we learn to manage it ourselves, it can save a lot of conflict, right? Could you dive a bit more into explaining what a trigger is?
Yeah.
And just quickly, is every couple you've experienced or worked with, is it been a common problem that triggers are a big cause of disconnection and fights and disruption?
Yeah, definitely. I think the only difference is that in some couples, the triggers are obvious and they're loud, and others, they're very subtle. You don't even know you're being triggered. You just know that you don't like what's happening.
Yep.
That's really the only difference, I would say. It's it's a question of intensity.
What is a trigger exactly? If we can just explain for someone that's never heard what a trigger is and they're going, what the hell do they mean by trigger? What is a trigger?
Yeah. Could be as simple as seeing your partner like someone else's photo on Facebook.
Makes you feel uneasy, right? That's triggering.
That's right. It's upsetting to you. It could be a tone of voice.
Yeah.
It could be a tone of voice that's triggering. I'm very mindful about my tone of voice with my partner, because I can use a tone of voice with a man and he won't even know, he won't even register that I'm speaking with a certain tone of voice. We're just having a conversation. I'll use that exact same tone with Sylvie and it'll hurt her feelings.
Yeah.
Because she's triggered, because it reminds her of something that someone said to her in the past, or it just doesn't feel good in her body. It feels aggressive to her. It may not be for me, but it's, triggers are very personal and they're not the same for everybody. The things that trigger Sylvie don't trigger me, and vice versa.
Yes. And that's what I want to go back to, understanding each other's triggers. And if you don't mind, Steve, I'd love to share a couple of our triggers. I mean, my personal trigger is alcohol. And it comes from, many different reasons. An alcoholic stepdad who was not very nice. So when, and everyone when they drink, so even if Steve's not doing the wrong thing when he drinks, he's still not Steve. He's not himself, because, alcohol does make you be a bit more silly and a bit more louder or whatever. I am triggered when people have alcohol. And it's something I'm really learning to work through, because people around me drink. I'm not going to, every single person around me, all my girlfriends love a wine. Steve loves a beer. Everyone, most people like to drink. So that's my trigger. And for Steve, in your past, you have had relationships where they've been unfaithful. So there's certain situations where I might go away on an overseas trip and Steve feels triggered by that. And it's about him learning to manage through that, but also me not feeling like I have to carry all of that, and vice versa.
Yeah, so that the biggest one on that is, like, obviously in the past it would be projecting my trigger onto you, then, and it's your
responsibility.
Your responsibility to heal me on that, because it's you're doing this, you're doing that. Where realistically, it's not. It's something. It's your own personal work that you need to work on, and it's about. I mean, that's what I've learnt the most out of working with you.
And it takes practice, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there are things that we can do for each other avoiding all the triggers, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
It's just it's a hopeless dream. It's a hopeless utopian dream that our partner is going to be able to not trigger us.
Not drink or not go away in our situation, right? I would never be able to go away and you wouldn't be allowed to drink. It's just, it's not and that's not the life we want to put on each other either.
That's right. And I think however, there are ways that we can be sensitive when knowing that something is going to trigger our partner, or there may be some things that we do need to give up doing in order for our partner to feel safe in the relationship, if we want to choose that relationship. I mean, you just don't get to be exactly the same or do exactly the same things you do in a relationship that you did when you were single. Yeah. It just doesn't work that way.
There's boundaries.
And boundaries are important. And two people you have different cultures, family cultures at least, different biologies. It's just you're gonna trigger each other.
Yeah.
The challenge is learning how to, again, stay connected in partnership when those triggers arise. Yeah. That's the real challenge.
You're on the same
because it also often so happens that when my partner gets triggered, her reaction to the trigger will trigger my triggers.
Yes.
Yes.
Like the corresponding, the dancing trigger syndrome.
Yeah.
And that's so common. And so then when you have two people in a room who are triggered, I mean, it's World War III.
Yeah.
Can
Total
be.
disconnection.
So, but as you said earlier, Stephen, it only takes one person to interrupt that pattern. And I'm such a huge fan of working with a coach or a therapist to doing that work so that you can, it's the second stage self-awareness work. It's boundary work, learning your boundaries. Where do you feel safe in your life? Like, what do you need to feel safe? What's okay with you? What's not okay? What are what I call your requests versus your requirements for a relationship and figuring all that stuff out so that you can, the beautiful thing about boundaries is they set you up for stage 3 generosity, fulfillment. Without them, you can't do it. You're exhausted from trying to protect yourself all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And it's like you said, that you're a big advocate for having a coach, a relationship coach for yourself, even though you and your partner are both relationship coaches.
Absolutely.
You have people you turn to. And I love it too. Like, even if we're not in crisis, just having a session with you once a month continuously, because it's like, if you don't learn all of this stuff, they don't teach you in school how to have a successful relationship. They don't teach you the 5 languages, love languages. They don't teach you about human needs. They don't teach you about triggers. They don't teach you about boundaries. And the more we can learn about all of this, the more understanding you have, the more connection you're going to have, and the more you can heal your past wounds and create that deep, passionate, happy love that we are all craving. And if we didn't have this understanding of why we were triggered by certain things and how to work through them, we wouldn't have survived our marriage, because it was just, it would have been a blame. You're doing this wrong, you're doing that, and you're in that stage 1. Whereas now we have a deep understanding of, okay, well, this is why I'm triggered and this is how to move through it. You work together as a team, and it's such a beautiful journey to go on together. It's challenging at times, but it's really beautiful and connecting when you can work through that together.
Yeah, and really understanding like when you dive deep into the work of yourself, like understanding why those triggers are happening is so important. Like I said with mine, with the overseas trips, like after our work, man, like I found out the reason why I feel like that is really valid, and it was such a, like, if I share a little bit, like my mother left my father for another man when I was 10, and he died 2 or 3 days later. So my model of that is death, and if I feel anything like that, death, you can imagine the feelings I feel. I'm triggered as hell, and like that's power, knowing that it is. So it's and it's not about avoiding those feelings or project. Like in the past, I might project those feelings. It's your fault, or it's you're causing me that issue. But realistically, it's I'm doing that to myself because of and it's not what you taught me. It's more of a body. It's a neurological thing. It's in my nervous system.
That's right.
It's more than just a thought. It's a full body experience, and
when you've said it's power for you to understand, it was really powerful to have you, Bryan, explain that to me and Steve. Like, for me to now understand that, when he was 10 years old, he witnessed his mother leave him for another man, and then his dad passed away. So now any association with me potentially cheating, you feel that grief of death. That's a huge understanding, and it really helps me to be a more supportive partner, not taking it on, not taking responsibility, but I can be more compassionate, understanding when he is triggered to help him through that.
Yeah, and it's not easy because, but yeah, I mean, look at that. That's such a wounding in a person, and when we're faced with that. And again, it's not rational. You might know, of course, she's not going to do anything. She's never given me any reason to think she's going to do something, but your nervous system doesn't know that. Your lizard brain that just wants to survive in this moment is there a threat present? Is there not a threat present? And right now there's a fucking threat present because she's not here. I don't know what's going on. And that's what happened. Mom left, and then dad died literally 2 or 3 days later. Holy shit. 5 alarms. Let's call out the battle stations. And you're going to act like a monster. You're drowning. You're a drowning person. You're going to act crazy.
Yep.
And that is going to often, and this happens in most relationships, it certainly happens in mine, that you're going to act in ways that are going to trigger the fuck out of your partner. she's going to be like, what is happening to you? Why are you acting like a monster? I'm not doing anything to you.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's really helped me helped us both. Like like for me, that feeling's still going to come up. Like it's never fixed. It's something that's always going to be there. It's just part of my, it's so deep into my nervous system, but I do have the power to control that feeling, and it's I used to expel it out to get rid of it, but now what you've taught me is to bring it in and feel it and own it and breathe through it and make it part of, not fight it. It's like and there's something about processing that now that it sits with me and it dissipates, and it's been a huge thing for me. And I really encourage for anyone, let's face it, everyone has a trigger. Doesn't matter what value, what type it is, but really going deep and finding out the root of that trigger. And for me, like finding out that really gave me a sense of, I'm okay. It's I'm valid for those reasons. I'm not, because I didn't like the person I was being in those moments. I wasn't in control of that, and it made me feel like that I just didn't like that person. But now that I have those triggers, I can be a bit more, give myself a bit more love and sort of, and now I can really heal and go in. And since that I have that trauma I understand a lot more about that trauma, because now I've investigated why I feel like that. There was reasons why mum left, etc. And it's opened up a whole spectrum of things that I've healed, and that has been so much power for me. And that's not to say that I will never get triggered again. You can't expect that to happen. It's something that
the triggers will always be there. It's how you manage them.
Yeah, it's how you manage them, and in a relationship, it's how you dance together, I guess. And we especially us two, we're getting so much better at those, managing each other's triggers, and sort of making and it is through connection. Like even when you're triggered, you still can be connected, and has been the hardest thing to get, because it's when you're triggered, you're in
that stage one and just in your head of everything you're experiencing, not about them.
And the trigger comes back to vulnerability. So instead of going, you're doing this, you're doing that, or whatever it is, whether it's drinking or the other one that Ashy shared, it's more, babe, I'm feeling this right now. I'm feeling a bit scared or unsafe, etc. And that gives a chance for her to feel me, and then now we can connect on that.
And it is that vulnerability. If he was to come to me and say, you're doing this, you're doing that, why are you doing that? I'm triggered. I'm like, oh, hang on a second. 10 years I've never done anything wrong. What do you mean?
Right.
But when he comes to me and says, I'm scared, or I'm feeling a bit worried about this, it's like, oh, okay, I want to be here for you and reassure you and, work with you to make sure you're okay.
Yeah, because my parents left, and I remember the night that my dad left when I was 4. I remember him packing his bag, and I remember that night so clearly, and it remains a pain in my heart, even though it was the best thing that ever could have happened. Just to be quite frank, my parents had no business staying together, but still it hurt. When my partner today, in the first few years of our relationship, we get into an argument, she would run out of the room. That was so triggering for me, because it was like all of a sudden she became dad leaving to never come back. And it's devastating. So these triggers, they can soften with time, the intensity of when they happen now, because we have this awareness, and she knows, although I think a couple months ago we got into an argument and she stormed out of the room, but I knew we've developed a trust. We've developed, we have a deeper layer of understanding for what's happening. I understand the trigger for me more. So it's like, even when it still happens, and it's rare, because she's been great at helping, at not leaving the room sometimes, or coming back in and apologizing and acknowledging how I understand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I know how that's hurtful to you, and it triggers that. And so it's like, it can soften also. It's still, I'll still feel it if she were to do that. It would still be like, my nervous system would lock up, like, holy shit, life is about to change forever and it's going to suck. or really I'm going to die is really what it comes down to, you know, because your dad leaves, you die. Your parents don't take care of you. You die when you're 4.
Yeah.
It is a life or death thing when you're that age, and it gets locked into the system. So,
yeah. And so just on you personally, like, how did that play out in your relationship or did you heal that quite quickly because you were
No, it's still something that I don't think it'll ever leave me. It's still, as I said, it's why, you know, even as I'm speaking about it in this podcast, there's moments when I get very passionate. My voice becomes very activated. Even I can't speak about it almost with an even keel voice. Like I'm very passionate. It shows up in my relationship too. Just, you know, again, and it could be my partner and I having a difficult moment, and she just needs some time by herself. Just that moment, it's like, again, the old feeling is there. I just, in the context of relationship with a partner who I know is sensitive to it.
Yes.
I feel more safe. And so I know, okay, she's not, and she'll, you know, sometimes she'll say the actual words, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving you.
Yes.
I'm here. We're in this together. And that's one of the tools that I teach that we've worked with, you know, little kind of language needles, I call them, in the spirit of acupuncture, to, you know, you put them in the body to increase flow through the body. Well, you use these little language needles to insert into your relationship to help the body relax so that love can flow between you again. So those are little language needles she uses with me. I'm not leaving you. I love you. I'm here. We're in this together. I know we're triggered right now, but I'm here. My body can relax. My nervous system can relax. And then if she needs to leave or go take care of herself for a minute because she just can't show up, it's okay.
Yep.
You've got those tools to help each other through that. It's beautiful.
We stay connected. That's it. We're connected even in what might otherwise feel like disconnect, but we're connected. Yeah. It's fucking beautiful.
It's so beautiful. So beautiful.
I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that.
Oh, I get really passionate talking about this, and it's hard, I admit, and you must feel the same. It's hard to be vulnerable and even for us to share our stories. And, you know,
it is.
A lot of people will look into someone's lives and think that things are perfect, but no relationship's perfect, and everyone goes through struggles. And what I really admire about couples is the couples that aren't afraid, well, they're afraid, but they go deep. They get vulnerable, they get real, they open up their wounds, and they go, okay, how is the best way to move through this together as a team? It's not easy to get uncomfortable. We've had extremely uncomfortable conversations with you when we are not connected and we're trying to navigate our way through a trigger. But it's so beautiful when you can come out the other side and have a deeper understanding. And I really encourage anyone listening. I think there's a stigma around getting a relationship coach or a relationship counselor that means you're broken. Not at all. It helps strengthen you. It helps you learn about your partner. It helps create deeper connection. And I want to do it for the rest of my life. It's incredible.
If you'll have it.
Yeah, in fact, don't wait until you're broken.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
do it before, so you don't get to broken.
Love that.
Or improve what you're on, you know, improve where you're at. If you're in stage 2, if you want to get to stage 3, you know.
Yeah, even Nat said to me the other day, for those following, Nat is one of my best friends, and she's got a session booked in with you and her partner, I think next week or the week after. And she said, oh, well, what if we've got nothing to talk about? And I said, it's okay to go to a relationship coach when you're not in crisis. There is always things to talk about, and you can talk about past triggers or things that seem to pop up frequently. Like there's always improvement to be happening in all areas of your life: health, fitness, finances, relationships. And if you want a loving, passionate, alive relationship, you need to put the work in and the energy and the focus in it to help it flourish and grow. Just
like you'd go to an accountant, just like you'd go to a personal trainer for health. Like it's just another area of life that
and it's one of the most important.
I believe so. I mean, when our relationship is in trouble, everything else doesn't matter. It's you know, life.
It's hard to work. It's hard to be happy. It's hard to, you're not motivated to do anything. When we're feeling passionate, alive, and connected, we can handle the world together, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been an incredible conversation. I don't want it to end, but I feel like we have been talking for a while.
We have. And I hope you'll be one of our regular guests because I
would be honored.
We value everything you say and everything you do and everything you're about.
Yeah.
So, we want to make sure that everyone can connect with you too.
Yes, and learn from you.
We're going to make sure that everything is in our show notes, how they can find your programs, online programs, but also connect with you if they wanted some sort of coaching personally or as a relationship, men or women. But is there anything else you want to add about what you do and how you can help our listeners?
Yeah, I think, well, I want to just come back and you guys just said it too. I'll kind of come back full circle. When we can learn to create connection first, we can get through anything. Yeah. Anything, yeah. Even the dissolution of a partnership, even the dissolution of a marriage or a relationship or a business partnership, when we can stay connected, even that can be a beautiful experience.
Yes.
And I think that's, in the end, we want to enjoy our lives and feel good every day and know that we're living our heart's truth. And that's been the biggest lesson. One of the biggest lessons for me in my life is really to stay connected and yeah, come on over to my website. We have a conflict to connection online program that actually my fiance and I did together.
Amazing.
To help to give a lot of these tools to create connection. And it never ceases to amaze me how, my childhood wound, that deep, deep wound that will never go away, is also the source of my greatest gift.
Yeah.
And what I'd love to do the most. And
what a beautiful meaning you've put on that.
Thank you both so much for inviting me in and for trusting me in to serve you on your journey as well. It's truly is a privilege.
Thank you. I feel so appreciative of your time today. And even I want to shout out your Instagram page and even your wife's as well. Both of them. Every time I'm like having a scroll and something pops up and I read it, I'm like, yes, that is so
awesome
true.
Content.
Love your content, everything you say, the way you explain it. It's so easy to take in and to take on and to implement. So we'll make sure all of your details are below. But once again, thank you so much for joining us today on the Lessons Podcast.
Yeah. Have a great day.
Thank you both.
Thanks, Bryan. Bye.
Bye.
Bryan just manages to blow us away every single time we talk to him, and I feel like it's never enough time with him. So we definitely intend to make him a regular on the Lessons Podcast because we believe we've got a lot more to learn from Bryan. Thanks for listening, guys. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Lessons Podcast. We're going to leave all of our guest social media handles below and on our Instagram page. And remember, we'd love to hear from you. So please jump on over to our Lessons Podcast Insta page to tell us what you think.
Plus, if you share a screenshot of the episode on your Insta stories and tag our Lessons Podcast Instagram, you'll automatically get a 20% discount off the entire range of Hideaway bath and body products, and be entered into a weekly draw for a Hideaway gift pack valued at $75. So, don't miss out.
Don't forget to join us on the Lessons Podcast next week for another inspiring guest and fantastic life lesson. If you think you've got a lesson to share, we'd love to hear from you. Hit the link in the description box to get in touch. Bye!